Am I the a-hole for finally snapping after my family spent years treating me like the less important child? I need to know if I am the asshole. This is long, and I apologize in advance, but this issue has been ongoing for over a decade, so there is a lot involved to the point where I know I'll be leaving things out and fear this may not give a clear, total picture. The more recent instances are just the tipping point. I, F38, am the middle child out of 3 living children belonging to my parents. My sisters will be referred to as 1, F46, and 3, F33. Their partners are S, M40, and D, M34. When we were children, my mother, F65, renowned for her excellent cooking, began a tradition where when it was your birthday, you could choose anything you wanted, and she would make it for family dinner to celebrate the birthday person. It was a staple of our childhood, an explicit demonstration of love through food, effort, and undivided family attention. I'm a December baby, and I always struggled with my birthdays getting snowed out, or no one being around to celebrate due to holiday travel. I am referring to school friends here, as people were always leaving town for winter break. My family compensated for this when I was younger by holding off on the festivities until I agreed to decorate the house for Christmas, and of course, we had the birthday dinner. It felt balanced back then. When I graduated from high school, I went off to a college that was 6 hours away from home. Despite the distance, I made it a point to come home for every single break and every major holiday. I wanted to maintain that connection. In 2010, when I asked about when we could fit my birthday meal into my visit, my mother looked me dead in my eyes at a family member's wedding the weekend after Thanksgiving and told me that no one wants to cram another family meal in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I stood there, completely deflated, as she dismissed a tradition that belonged to me just as much as anyone else. To make matters worse, at this same wedding, she went up and asked the live band to sing me happy birthday. The band announced over the microphone that they'd been asked to celebrate a guest's birthday, but they would like to remind everyone that the bride's birthday was the following day. It was incredibly humiliating to be publicly framed as someone trying to steal a bride's thunder, but okay, moving on. From that incident on, I have only received 2 birthday meals total. I was 24 then. Fast forward to my 30th birthday. My then partner, and the father of my child, noticed how deeply this pattern affected me. He called my mother directly and arranged for me to have a birthday meal with my family for the first time in 6 years. It felt nice to be recognized, even if someone else had to pull the strings to make it happen. Unfortunately, we split up later that year, and I wound up living back with my parents along with my daughter, who was 2 years old at the time. The following year, my daughter noticed the disparity. She literally cried to my mother that no one would throw a birthday for me, so my mother finally relented and did a dinner for me that year also. I am now 38 and have not had a single dinner since then. My siblings both receive their birthday dinners every year without fail, as do their partners and one's 2 grown children. One of her children also went away to college just like I did, but they were still never skipped. The other sibling's husband and 2 grown children have also never been skipped for birthday meals. The calendar is constantly cleared for everyone else's milestone and non-milestone days, while mine is brushed aside as an inconvenience. I have let my family know multiple times that this hurts me, and I have begged repeatedly for the reason that I am treated differently. I've never stolen, been to jail, done drugs, or harmed anyone. I have followed the rules, maintained a relationship with them, and tried to be a good daughter and sister. I don't know why I get treated like the throwaway family member. Whenever I bring it up, trying to find some sort of logical explanation or closure, I am constantly gaslit. I am told I'm dramatic, told to get over it, and told that I'm full of crap. They refuse to acknowledge the pattern, making me feel like I am losing my mind for noticing the obvious. The disparity extended to the next generation as well. Years later, I got married and welcomed a beautiful stepchild, and eventually, I became pregnant again. I gave birth to my second biological child, my son. During the pregnancy, my family completely ignored my husband when he reached out to ask if he should throw a baby shower or if they would be handling it. Furthermore, they lied to my 2 closest college friends. When my friends offered to put something together, my family told them that they would do something themselves and would invite my friends to attend. Spoiler, there was no baby shower. They effectively blocked my friends from throwing me one, and then did absolutely nothing. My mother is now telling anyone who will listen that the lack of a celebration is because you never throw a shower after the first baby. However, my older sister, 1, got a shower for both of her children. When confronted with this contradiction, my mother shifted the goalposts, claiming it was because 1 had a girl first, and we just thought she would need some boy things. In case you haven't been following the timelines and family members, I have a daughter, a stepdaughter, and I just had a baby boy last year. That's right, daughter first, boy second. Yet there was no shower for me. My son was completely ignored. The final straw for me happened recently on New Year's Day. I was at a family gathering when I overheard my sisters talking in detail about their itinerary and a specific dinner reservation. I casually asked what they were talking about, and it turned out they were planning a major international trip. They're going to my absolute dream vacation spot, a country that is somewhere I have wanted to go for a very long time, which my entire family is well aware of. They were sitting right in front of me discussing the trip. That's right, they're taking a sibling trip together with their partners. My partner and I, once again, were completely excluded from the conversation and the invitation. The hurt must have been plain on my face because 3 noticed. Instead of showing any empathy or discretion, 3 snorted, looked directly at me, and said, "What, do you want to come?" She chuckled to herself, turned her back, and went right back to her conversation with 1. She was my maid of honor, by the way. I have consistently shown up for everyone else's birthdays, graduations, and celebrations. I don't just show up as a passive guest either. I bring a dish, sometimes up to 5 different dishes, and I always bring a thoughtful gift. I set up the tables, I break down the decorations, and I clean up the trash at the end of the night while everyone else relaxes. Yesterday, the reality of that excluded sibling trip hit my phone. I received a photo via text from 3 showing off her new engagement ring. While on their sibling trip, 3's partner proposed to her. 1 and her husband were right there alongside them, recording the entire moment on video. I was left to find out through a text message after being excluded from the entire experience. It is worth noting here how vastly different their reactions were to my own milestones. When I got engaged, it happened to be the day before Father's Day. Knowing how my family operates, I consciously kept the news to myself for the entire weekend so that no one could claim I was trying to make Father's Day all about me. Eventually, my niece noticed the ring on my finger and pointed it out to 1. 1 didn't congratulate me. She just looked at it, replied, "Yeah, I see the fucking thing," and rolled her eyes. I need to know if my feelings of being treated like trash they wish they could make disappear are valid, or if I'm being the asshole. I've spoken to my family directly about how much this hurts me, and every single time, I'm told to suck it up and not be so dramatic. I am also gaslit and told I'm making things up, or that the timeline doesn't match reality. I do get a present for my birthday every year, but I keep trying to tell them that I would rather just have a simple dinner with my family rather than an object they bought just to shut me up. I'm not greedy. It's not because I want stuff or material things. I just want to be treated like I am as important as the rest of the family. At the very least, I want my children to be treated equally. None of them have ever gotten a birthday dinner for my mother, while their cousins are celebrated routinely. No one in my family can give me a straight answer as to why my husband and I are treated as inferior to my other siblings. I want to know why I am expected to keep showing up, investing my time, money, and emotional energy into celebrating people who make it completely obvious that they do not celebrate me or my household. Does feeling this way and wanting to pull away make me an asshole? Update. I am back with a not very surprising update to my post from 9 months ago. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. I honestly did not expect that many people to respond, and I definitely did not expect so many strangers to immediately recognize patterns in my family dynamic that I spent years convincing myself were either normal or not that bad. I have reread those comments more times than I can count over the past several months, especially during moments where I started second-guessing myself again. For a long time, I genuinely believed maybe I was too sensitive or too emotional about all of this. Growing up in a family where your feelings are constantly minimized does something weird to your brain. Even when something hurts you deeply, part of you still wonders whether you are somehow manufacturing the problem. It becomes automatic to downplay things before anyone else can. A lot has happened since my last post. The biggest thing is that I followed through on what many of you suggested and cut contact with my mother entirely. Full no contact. Phone blocked, social media blocked, email blocked, everything. At first, I only intended to take a short break because I was emotionally exhausted after realizing how many things I had normalized throughout my life. But the longer I stayed away, the more obvious it became that distance was the healthiest thing I could do for myself and my family. I have not attended a single family gathering since St. Patrick's Day dinner last year. No birthdays, no cookouts, no holidays, no random Sunday dinners. Nothing. My sisters are currently very low contact with me, though not in a hostile way. They both understand why I stepped away, even if I do not think they fully understand the depth of the damage. I also think they are struggling with the realization that once I removed myself from the family dynamic, certain behaviors became impossible to ignore anymore. It took about 4 months before exactly what many people predicted finally happened. Once my mother no longer had direct access to me, she started redirecting her behavior toward other people in the family. For years, I think everyone got used to me being the easiest target. I was the one expected to absorb criticism quietly, smooth things over, apologize first, and continue showing up no matter how badly I was treated. Once I stopped participating, there was suddenly a vacuum where that energy had nowhere to go. The first major incident happened during a girls' outing with both of my sisters and my adult niece. I was not there, obviously, but both my younger sister and my niece later told me about it separately, and their stories matched almost perfectly. They were at a small local distillery. Not some loud, chaotic bar, more of a small-town community-style place where families and regulars gather. While they were waiting for drinks, a school-aged child near the entrance kept opening and closing the door because he was running in and out with another kid. According to my sister, it was mildly annoying at worst. Apparently, my mother suddenly snapped and loudly started cussing at this child about letting cold air into the building. My niece tried to calmly defuse the situation by saying something along the lines of, "He's just a kid," which should have been the end of it. Instead, my mother completely turned on her. And when I say turned on her, I mean publicly humiliated her in front of strangers over a completely harmless comment. My niece has struggled with anxiety for years. She worked incredibly hard to get herself into a healthier place mentally, and up until now my mother always treated her differently than she treated me. More gently, more affectionately, more patiently. I think my niece honestly believed she was exempt from that side of my mother's personality because she had never personally experienced it before. Not anymore. From what I was told, my mother accused her of being disrespectful, ungrateful, rude, and embarrassing. My niece tried apologizing at first because she was caught off guard, but apparently that only encouraged my mother to keep escalating. The entire table ended up uncomfortable and silent while my mother continued dressing her down over what should have been a completely forgettable interaction. My younger sister later admitted that hearing it happen in real time made her physically uncomfortable because it sounded almost identical to the way my mother used to talk to me growing up. That part hit me harder than I expected. Not because I wanted someone else to experience it, but because it confirmed something I spent years questioning. I was not exaggerating. I was not imagining patterns that were not there. The behavior was always real. I was just the person carrying the majority of it. My niece has handled everything surprisingly well considering the situation. She has mostly distanced herself emotionally and refuses to engage in dramatic back-and-forth arguments. I'm honestly proud of her for that because I know firsthand how difficult it is not to get sucked into trying to defend yourself to someone who has already decided you are wrong. My father, meanwhile, has become the most confusing part of this entire situation. After I officially went no contact with my mother, he showed up at my house unexpectedly one afternoon asking if we could talk privately. I agreed because despite everything, I do love my father. He has many flaws, but unlike my mother, I do not believe he intentionally enjoys hurting people. He sat in my kitchen looking genuinely overwhelmed and asked me to explain, from the beginning, why I was cutting my mother off completely. So I did. Not just the birthday dinners or the trip exclusion. Everything. I talked about the constant dismissiveness, the favoritism, the mocking, the way important milestones involving me or my children were treated like inconveniences while everyone else received enthusiasm and support automatically. I brought up specific comments, situations, reactions, and years of feeling like I was tolerated instead of loved. At first, he looked genuinely shocked hearing everything laid out all at once. Then almost immediately afterward, he started slipping back into old habits. That has honestly been the most frustrating part. He now understands enough to recognize that something is wrong, but decades of enabling my mother have completely rewired his instincts. He still defaults to minimizing things whenever the conversation becomes uncomfortable for him. He'll agree something sounds cruel, then follow it with, "But was it really that serious?" Or, "You know how your mother is," or, "That was years ago." At one point, he actually said, "So what?" after I explained how humiliating some of these experiences were. I finally snapped a little and told him that this exact behavior is part of the reason things got this bad to begin with. Every time my mother hurt someone, everyone around her immediately focused on calming the situation down instead of addressing the behavior itself. That conversation lasted hours. I also learned a lot about my father during it that honestly made me sad more than angry. My father is a recovering alcoholic. Growing up, I knew he drank heavily, but I did not fully understand until adulthood how much of his life revolved around avoiding conflict with my mother. He admitted that for years it felt easier to stay quiet, agree with her, or emotionally check out rather than risk becoming her next target himself. That does not excuse anything, but it does explain a lot. He spent decades functioning in survival mode inside his own marriage. Now that I am forcing these conversations to happen directly, he genuinely does not know how to process them. On my birthday this year, he showed up at my house alone with a card, a gift, and a cupcake with candles in it. He awkwardly sang happy birthday to me standing in my kitchen while my youngest laughed because he forgot part of the song halfway through. I actually cried after he left. Not because it magically fixed anything, but because it was the first time in years someone in my family acknowledged how much birthdays mattered to me emotionally instead of acting like I was ridiculous for caring. At the same time, I also made it very clear to him that I cannot continue carrying the emotional labor of teaching him why my mother's behavior is harmful every single time we talk. It is exhausting constantly defending your own pain to people determined to reduce it into something smaller and easier to ignore. I told him directly that if he continues defaulting to defending her or invalidating me, then eventually I will need distance from him too. I think that genuinely scared him. Since then, he has been walking on eggshells around me. Part of that is probably fear of losing access to my children, especially because my kids absolutely adore him. He has also apparently started pressuring my oldest sister to address my mother's behavior directly before things completely implode. According to my sister, he told her, "Somebody needs to talk to your mother before she blows up the whole family." The thing is, I think the family already blew up a long time ago. Everyone just got very good at pretending otherwise. Until recently, I still allowed my children to visit my parents occasionally, without me present. I thought maybe maintaining some kind of grandparent relationship would still be healthy, as long as I personally maintained boundaries. That changed very quickly. My middle child came home after one visit and repeated several nasty comments my mother had made about various people in our family. Not just about me, and my husband either. She apparently criticized my daughter's biological father, his wife, and multiple parenting choices involving households that are absolutely none of her business. Hearing those things come out of my child's mouth made me feel sick. I had to sit down and explain that adults are not automatically right just because they are older, and that speaking cruelly about people behind their backs is not acceptable behavior no matter who is doing it. That conversation alone was upsetting enough. Then my oldest daughter told me something that honestly sealed the entire situation permanently. For clarification, she is technically my stepdaughter, but I do not distinguish between my children that way in daily life. She is my daughter in every way that matters. Apparently, during my nephew's graduation party months ago, she overheard my mother referring to her as Piggy, dessert kid, and Oinka while talking to another relative about her weight gain. My daughter was 9 years old when this happened.
9.
And she never told us because she was embarrassed. That absolutely shattered me. I already knew my mother had made inappropriate comments before disguised as concern about her weight. I confronted her previously after she made remarks about portion sizes and junk food around the kids, but I had no idea the comments were this cruel or that my daughter had overheard them directly. Looking back, certain things make horrible sense now. My daughter becoming weirdly self-conscious at family gatherings, asking for oversized clothes suddenly, avoiding eating around certain relatives. I thought it was normal preteen insecurity beginning early. Now I know my mother was actively contributing to it. The second I heard that story, any lingering guilt I had about no contact disappeared completely. Whatever complicated emotions I still had about maintaining family ties stopped mattering once my children became collateral damage too. I can tolerate a lot when it only affects me. I spent most of my life doing exactly that. But I will not raise children around someone who chips away at their self-esteem while pretending it comes from love or concern. My husband has been incredibly supportive through all of this, although he admitted recently that he noticed far more dysfunction over the years than I realized. Apparently, there were multiple times he wanted to confront my mother himself, but held back because he knew it would create bigger problems for me afterward. That part also hurt to hear because it reminded me how normalized all of this became inside my own head. The weirdest thing about no contact has honestly been how peaceful life feels now. Not perfect, obviously. There is still grief attached to realizing your own mother may never become the person you hoped she would eventually be. But the constant anxiety surrounding family events is gone. Holidays are calmer. Birthdays feel less emotionally loaded. I am no longer spending weeks preparing myself mentally to survive gatherings where I leave feeling humiliated or unwanted. My children seem more relaxed too. I know some people hoped for a dramatic ending where my mother suddenly realized everything, apologized sincerely, and changed overnight. That has not happened. Honestly, I do not think it will. Instead, what happened is exactly what many of you predicted. Once I stopped functioning as the family scapegoat, the behavior simply spread elsewhere and became impossible for everyone else to ignore anymore. TL. Dear, a bunch of you were right, and my mother crashed out on other family members now that she does not have access to verbally or emotionally abuse me any longer. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.